Hate begets hate. Violence begets violence. Toughness begets a greater toughness. We must meet the forces of hatred with the power of love, said Martin Luther King Jr. Greetings to one and all present here. Hope you are having a good day. On behalf of Youth Red Cross Association VIT and on the occasion of 16 days of activism against gender based violence, we welcome you to our event, Break the Silence on Violence. I am Arushi,
And I am Pranav.
and we will be your hosts for today, this beautiful evening. Before getting started, I would like to say a few words about our club. The Youth Red Cross Association is one of the most notable clubs in VIT Vellore with the motto of service before self. From organizing blood donation camps to performing skits on various social issues to our campaign against substance abuse, we have upheld our motto every time throughout these years. Even in this pandemic situation, we have been actively working towards spreading awareness about various social issues and working towards the welfare of the society as a whole. Violence has been a raging problem across the world, stemming from various social evils, gender based discrimination, casteism, and prejudice on many grounds. The past few years have seen an overwhelming surge in various forms of violence against women, members of the LGBTQIA+ community, and the youth. The statistics paint a terrible picture. In the past 12 months, the number of intimate partner violence cases have been more than the number of COVID-19 cases. The National Commission for Women reports that cases of domestic violence increased by 250% during the lockdown. According to UN Women, almost half of all women across 13 countries reported that they or a woman they knew had suffered from gender based discrimination during the lockdown. Social isolation has forced victims to be in the constant presence of their aggressor and encouraged household conflicts and tensions. When the government asks people to stay at home, they fail to consider that often home is not a safe haven for many vulnerable groups who might suffer abuse and neglect at the hands of their own family members. The current scenario has also increased the incidence of youth related violence due to a general discontentment amongst young people. The pandemic has deprived them of educational and economic opportunities at a very important developmental stage in their life. This makes them highly vulnerable to different forms of exploitation, cyberbullying, abuse, and also in perpetrating violence themselves. It is sad to note that such issues have been largely neglected in the wake of the pandemic. Violence is a public health hazard that needs to be tackled immediately. Therefore, there is a need to refocus our efforts towards its elimination from the society.
To enlighten us further on this topic today, we have with us Dr. Farzana Khan from My Choices Foundation, an organization aimed at fighting domestic violence and sex trafficking in India. Dr. Farzana has a doctorate in political science and PG diploma in human rights. She has 12 years of experience working with various women and human rights organizations in India. Her field of expertise encompasses constitutional and legal frameworks, as well as the international human rights mechanism. Her professional and academic interests include gender, patriarchy, identity based violence, and laws related to women and children. She has been associated with Operation Pacemaker by My Choices Foundation since 2014 and is a part of national level advocacy efforts to ensure effective implementation of the Domestic Violence Act across the country. She strives to see a world that is free from abuse and exploitation, where human rights can be protected and nurtured without any bias and prejudice. Without any further ado, I would like to hand it over to Dr. Farzana Khan. Good evening, ma'am.
Uh, Good evening, Pranav. Good evening, Arushit, and thank you so much for having me here. And I'm really very encouraged to see all the youths who are taking lead to organize such discussion. It's a very important topic to discuss to bring awareness because awareness is the key to prevent violence and eliminate all form of violence against women, children, and anyone whose human rights have been violated. So thank you so much for having me here.
Yes,
Thank you,
ma'am.
ma'am. Pleasure is all
Uh,
ours.
yes, ma'am. Yeah. Ma'am, I have a question. What is the root cause of gender-based violence?
So basically, gender-based violence, if you see the United Nations definition, it refers to any harmful acts directed at an individual or group of individuals based on their gender. And it is rooted in gender inequality, the abuse of power, and harmful norms. And so, gender basically refers where we identify the role that society has given based on our sex. And the root cause of gender based violence is very structured and flows from the system of patriarchy. So many of us have heard the word patriarchy. So patriarchy literally means power of father, but basically it's a power of man because this system believes that women are less or unequal. So the power should lies in the male member of the family, and the children and women are under them. So basically, it confirms the inequality, the lower status of women, and it's a very, as I said, it's a very structured system. So because it has been practiced since hundreds of years, so without system, it cannot go on. So it's a very structured system. First thing we need to understand if we want to see the root cause of gender-based violence, and it is about power and control. So women are considered to be less, and they should be under the men, and that's why this whole gender-based violence or discrimination we see. And any institution can be patriarchal, even women can be patriarchal. uh, Whoever believes in the system of women being less is actually coming from the system of patriarchy. So religion can be patriarchal, families can be patriarchal, media, market, government institutions. So in all aspect of life, we see a lot of discrimination and violence against especially women. So yeah, so the root cause is basically patriarchy and power and control.
Okay,
I
ma'am.
hope
Moving on.
I'm able to yeah, clarify. Yeah, sure, Pranav.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. The question has been answered beautifully. Shall I move on to the next question?
Yes,
Excuse me.
please.
Yes, ma'am. We all live in a pandemic situation right now. May I know how has the pandemic resulted in an increase in the incidence of violence?
So, as Arushi started saying that pandemic has increased violence against women at many folds, and because we are working in this field on the ground, so our organization we also witnessed firsthand a lot of escalation in violence and abuse, and the reason is there are many reasons, but first and foremost. Uh, Many a times we see that home is the safest place for women, but you must know that worldwide, not just in India, worldwide, women are subjected to domestic violence. uh, some around somewhere 30% worldwide, and especially intimate partner violence, which WHO gives this data. 30% women goes through violence, physical or sexual violence through intimate partner. And And during this lockdown and this pandemic, it increases a lot because they are trapped inside the home with the perpetrators. There is unemployment, there is uncertainty, there is increased burden of household chores because men are staying inside the home but they are not contributing since it is considered a woman's job. So that is also a lot of conflicts arises. So the violence really got increased, and the worst thing is that they cannot approach or they cannot seek help with anyone outside. So it's like a trap for them. So yeah, so it got increased a lot, and National Women Commission also came up immediately with a WhatsApp helpline. And not only violence against women but against children also. So within the week or 10 days of lockdown, first round of lockdown, uh, 1098, which is a child helpline, they received within 10 days or 1 week, I think, they received 90,000 cases of child abuse on the helpline. So you can imagine the situation in many regions, it increased fivefolds. Mm, So, so that's the basic reason behind increase in the cases of gender-based violence.
Yes, ma'am. Indeed, women and children were locked down. I mean, locked inside their homes. And as you mentioned, the men were not working, so the pressure goes upon the women. So, yes. So, shall we move on to the next question, ma'am?
Yes, Varna.
Yes, ma'am. How do gender roles, stereotypes, and heterosexism shape domestic violence?
So, because when we see gender, we must understand that there are two terms. So it's a so we must give this basic understanding about what is gender, because many a times we interchange with sex. So sex is one thing and gender is another. So sex is something which is natural, biological. We born as a man, women, and majority of the time we consider only two sexes, men and women. But there are people with non-confirmed sexes, sometimes we call third gender. So we born with that, and it's a biological, it's a natural, it cannot be changed until unless we go through some surgery or operation procedures. And on the other hand, there is another word which is called gender. So gender is not natural, it is a social construct of the role and responsibilities given to a certain sex. So for example, as women, what society expect with me or with a man, what role and responsibilities and behaviors and things is associated because I am a woman or because someone is a man, that called gender. So we should never confuse between gender and sex. Sex is not changeable; it stays across. But gender, that's why gender is changing. It always changed. So, imagine the situation some years ago, the women's situation. Right now, they are getting educated, jobs. A lot of things have been changed. So gender is always changing according to society, according to time. So coming to the gender role stereotypes and how it shapes domestic violence. So once I uh, some attributes are associated or some expectations are associated because I am a woman or man, and if I am not performing accordingly or if I am not conforming to those norms, those given the society, what society is expecting out of me, if I am not conforming to that or not adhering to those things, I can be subjected to violence. I can be subjected to discrimination. So that's called stereotyping. So for example, we stereotype, like, if you ask somebody, uh, tell about man, who is man. So people say someone who is dominating, who is controlling, breadwinner, uh, providing safety, correct? And who is women? So many a times, what comes in our mind when we think about women? So she's someone who is caregiver, nurture, polite, behaving nicely, taking care of the family. So these are expectation that society is having with me. So that is again a stereotype, because I should be, you know, very polite, nice, and man should be breadwinner, control, you know, handling everything outside. So once these are associated and be boxed within those stereos and rules and responsibilities, and if we are not able to perform on those standards, then I can be subjected to domestic violence or any kind of gender-based violence. And it really leads to very clearly domestic violence, because
So
now,
as you
yeah, yes, Pranav.
there has been technical glitch. Very sorry. You can continue.
Yes. So I want to give a very fine example. Uh, if women is considered to look after the family, do household chores, and if she refused to do that, and if she is not able to do that well, then what we will term her? A bad woman. So if she is a bad woman, she deserves punishment, correct? And especially the notion of honor, like izzat. She's a ghar ki izzat. She's a honor of the family, honor of the khandan. So if she's not conforming to those things, she can be, and that's why it is justified. So if you see the latest data, even in this time, we just received the latest data from NSS and earlier also, which says, like, you know, 83%. I'm talking about Telangana, where currently I am. Uh, it says 83% women feels that wife beating is justifiable act by, in certain situation, by husband. And what are those justifiable acts? If she is not taking care of children, if she is not obeying in laws. So these are actually stereos and norms, and which shapes violence and abuse. And similarly on the men also, it's not just about women, men also. If imagine if a boy or man is not able to protect their family, not able to you know, earn well, then they will be also subjected to humiliation or sometime even abuse also. So these are the you know, various expectation, which is unnatural, which is nothing to do with nature, because nature made both men and women equal, with all the power and with all the emotions within them. So this actually leads discrimination and violence.
Yes, ma'am. Speaking of stereotypes, do you think the media, television, and in films playing in encouraging violence, especially against women? Does the media also have a positive impact on this situation?
I think more than positive, because we study a lot how, because media is a very powerful tool, and especially electronic media, social media, because now we are living in that digital world. So it has a lot of impact, and it increased a lot in recent time, because we spend a lot of time on these platforms and digital world. And it has a very much it impacted so much. And the reason, because what we are seeing, and the role models, where these role models are coming, and what they are teaching, what is shown to us. So movies, especially serials, even ads, that commercial ads, they all are perpetuating same gender based stereos and myths, which is not true. And our, especially our youth is impacted so much, because they look for a hero. So as youth, we always look forward to someone to follow, and whom they are following, who are these role models. So these filmy words, and you know, heroes and all those, and what they are perpetuating, what they are teaching: sexism. Like, you know, it's okay to follow a woman, it's okay to not take her consent, it's okay to show rapes and sexual harassment and all sort of gender stereos on the screen, and youth follow them. Like, you know, especially the issue of consent is a big issue which we see in the films. and I do not want to name, but some films, but they really badly impacted our youth. So yeah, it has a role. And as you ask, if they do have any positive, yes, there are certain films and there are certain section or in within the media which try to show other side of the picture or a different view, but there are not many takers because we are also coming from the same society. So sometimes we both are the reflection to each other, the the cinema and the society, right? So there are not much taker of those kinds of film they called art or offbeat cinema. So not much, but the mainstream media is playing a huge role in giving the distorted understanding of masculinity, consent, heroism, and perpetuating violence against women indirectly, or maybe I can say directly also.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Speaking of films, we have seen a lot of films with heroes of with toxic masculinity, right? So, how does toxic masculinity correlate with intimate partner and domestic violence?
Yeah, it is related with each other, Pranav, because as I said, okay, when society uh, expect certain kind of behavior and they believe that the man should be like this, so we box men, we box women. So real man should be like this. So who is a real man? Who is dominant? Who is aggressive? Who is a breadwinner? Who do not show the emotions? Who is not weak? Always, provider, always winner. So when this kind of boxing happens since the childhood, then it actually result into a toxic masculinity where they cannot hear no, they cannot express their emotions. So when you bottle up your emotions, you tend to be more aggressively, so it erupts aggressively in anger, in frustration, or sometime in a more dangerous way. So so this toxic masculinity basically leads to violence and abuse. And many men, because we work with both boys, men, women, girls, and when we interact with them during the sessions, during the counseling sessions at our centers, very unfortunately, they say whatever they are doing, they never thought that it is a violence or abuse. They felt that this is the way to behave with women. This is the way to put her on right place, because since childhood they learned that. So this toxic masculinity basically not only perpetuating violence against women, but also violence against men. We see lot of road rage, we see lot of bullying, or
Yes.
lot many alcoholism, drug use of drug, and lot of anxiety, depression. In fact, suicide rate is very high in men, because the emotions are not, they are not allowed to express themselves. So this toxic masculinity leads to many violent crimes, not just towards women but with men also. So yeah, it has a relation.
Yes, ma'am. Speaking about toxic masculinity, there are many myths and beliefs regarding domestic violence in our society, right? So, what are the popular myths and beliefs?
There are especially domestic violence, because we domestic violence is one issue that is affecting close to 50% of the population, women population. So this is a very serious issue. But the biggest myth about domestic violence is people think it's rare, it happens with poor, uneducated, and this is not much in domestic violence. It's a small, disputes or disagreement between the families, and we should not intervene in the private affairs of any family. They can deal with it. So these are basically popular belief regarding domestic violence. But if you see the fact that, as I said, more than 50% women, close to 50% women goes through domestic violence, and NFHS confirmed that 40% married Indian women goes through domestic violence, and mind it, that is reported. And we know that because it's a private affair, very few percentage of women coming out and talking about domestic violence. Forget about reporting to police or any other institution. Worldwide, only 10% women report to any take any institutional help like police. So imagine the situation in India. So a very big number of population suffering with domestic violence, and it is just not a small fight or dispute between the families. It is leading to so many it is destroying basically the life of women, the life of children, and the life of the family. And it leads to many murder. It can lead into murder. It can lead into lot of health issues, uh, from heart attack to other fatal diseases, mental disorders. So this is not a small thing, number one. Number two is the idea that it is just about physical and it happens to poor or uneducated. But the data, research, and our own experiences are showing that it is across all. So no demography, no religion, caste, class, and education. I mean, socioeconomic strata is exception. It happens across. And it is not just about physical, because sometimes we feel that violence is only physical. But in domestic violence, it occurs in four forms like physical, emotional, economic, and sexual violence. And as initially we mentioned, that family is not a very safest place for women. As I said, like, more than 40% women goes through domestic, married women, which is reported, and unreported we know. And they are not seeking help. Very less percentage are seeking help, because it is considered it brings dishonor to family. So it is not coming out. So these are various, myths that is associated with domestic violence, but facts are different, and that's why more and more awareness for a healthy society we must spread.
Yes, ma'am. Like there are the major problem in our country as well as certain South Asian countries would be that there are several misconceptions about domestic violence where the victims themselves are not aware of the situation that they are in, and they feel that it is okay to not report it and be continue being in that situation. So the first step towards fighting domestic violence would perhaps be to ourselves be aware of the various aspects associated.
Yes.
Yes, and Arushi, and to everyone who is watching, I have mentioned before that Dr. Farzana Khan has been on the legal side of this issue. So, ma'am, is the legislation and criminal justice system in India efficient enough to deal with this rising cases of violence?
So, Pranav, there is no straight answer to this question. So, there are two aspects with law. One is, do we have sufficient laws to prevent gender based violence or domestic violence? So, the answer is yes. So, India is one of those countries worldwide who have very progressive legislation to combat gender based violence and domestic violence. We have Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005, and it's really one of the very progressive and very thorough the legislation which really addresses all aspect of domestic violence. And recently we saw, after Nirbhaya incident, we saw the changes in our criminal justice process, and even some of the criminal laws, rape laws and sexual harassment laws also changed. We have sexual harassment at workplace law. So we have plenty of laws, very good laws. So yes, we do have. Now the next question is how effective they are, right? So
Yes, ma'am.
are they effectively dealing? Are women are getting justice? Are they being used? So on that side, there is a various hindrance, or first and foremost, awareness is not there about these laws. And number two, there is a inhibition to you know, to get, in that legal side, because it's a tedious process, it's a longer process, and our criminal justice system is not very robust uh, to give immediate relief. So the conviction rates are very low. Then the other part is the sensitization of law enforcer agencies. So, so as I said in my first answer, the system of patriarchy is everywhere. So if we focus more on sensitization of law enforcer agencies, we will get better result, because end of the day they are the one who is enforcing the law uh, and justice system. So like sensitization of police, sensitization of judiciary, other legal officers, in general departments like, women and child welfare, and all other departments who are primarily responsible to address the issue that women are facing. If they are sensitized enough, then we will be able to achieve better results. So laws are there, we have very good laws, but there is a problem from the implementation side where we need to work, and organizations are working, and government uh, is also nowadays taking steps towards, taking care of that side.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for those insightful, enlightening views, ma'am. Now we would like to take up a few questions that we received via Instagram and Google Forms. Shall we proceed, ma'am?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, ma'am. So the first question is, what is needed to end and prevent violence against women and girls?
So see, to prevent, I think, so we have to, because as I said, it's 100 years of practice, right? We are is being practiced to gender discrimination or violence. So it cannot end overnight by, few people. So there has to be a systematic way of preventing, and this is on a various levels. So government, at government level, organizations like us, societal level, individual level. So, all levels we have to work very hard to stop violence against women and girls. And I always emphasize more on, as an individual, what we can do. So, yes, institutions and, organizations are working, but as individual, as youth especially, what we can do. So if there are certain things we learn, right, through our socialization, in this process of socialization we learn many things. Maybe those learnings are harmful, maybe those learnings are not correct. So as I said, now there is a lot of myth associated, lot of wrong belief systems are associated. So am I willing to challenge those beliefs, my beliefs? So what is my self talk? So the more I am becoming aware about the issue, the surroundings, I think that would be first step. So I think at an individual level, we all must question our belief systems and see that whether it's a equal is leading towards equality or not, whether it's a human rights violation or not, and then we take steps accordingly. So awareness is key, and changing ourselves is within our hand, correct? So maybe I'm someone cannot change the institutions or big society, but you can start with yourself. So I think that that's need to be done. And then of course at a legislation level, at a government level, there is much more effort needed. Especially in the pandemic, we saw that how violence against women was not in government's priority, it was not included under Essential Services Act. So women were left on the mercy of their abusers, harassers. All the police were busy handling the spread of the virus. So no helpline, no police support, nothing. So many countries included violence against women in their Essential Services Act. So we also need to do, we have to allocate special budgets because women and children are always vulnerable to any such crisis situation. So are we prepared? Are our governments are prepared? And our educational institutions, our academia, what they are doing? Are they creating enough meaningful platforms for the youth to come and have a dialogue, to come and break these all these myths and break these silence? So academicians, our institutions have a bigger role to play because they are shaping the mind of our young, generation. So it should start all level. Gender based curriculums there should be there in the school level itself, because violence is a outcome of gender discrimination. So first we have to address gender discrimination. We have to address the issue of inequality, and automatically it will lead into equal and just society.
Yes, ma'am. So the first step is not just confronting the society about their beliefs, but confronting ourselves about our own beliefs and correcting ourselves. And not only is intervention required at every step, it's required at a personal level and it starts at our own homes.
Yes, true.
Yes, ma'am. The next question is a very important question. Uh, how can I find out if I am in a violent or abusive relationship?
Yeah, this is very relevant question, Pranav, I must say, because
Yes.
uh, if I'm not aware what I'm doing, as I said, many men who came to us, they were like, this is normal and this is how it should be. So if so we so there are certain ways to know. The first thing, the first parameters for any relationship or anything, whether it's a caste, whether it's a religion or region, anything, am I considering the person who is in front of me equal? So it starts from equality. So am I feeling more or am I giving someone less? Ah, so first parameter you should be having whether I'm considering this person equal to me. Number two, as I said, because toxic relationship or unhealthy relationships, there are various parameters, and it occurs in various forms like physical, sexual, emotional, and economic. So always see all those parameters and see if I am dominating in any parameters, whether I am perpetuating directly or indirectly all these forms of violence, then you will know. Okay. And then there are, because generally the youth are concerned, like what kind of relationship they are in. So there is a lot of beautiful tools available online. You can just google it. In fact, My Choices Foundation also develop a quiz. So it's in a quiz form, and with our experiences we have put those questions, and red, amber, and green. So you can check literally on those parameters, and you will get the result whether you are in a healthy relationship or borderline or unhealthy relationships. So there are beautiful tools you can try. You can go to our website and you can take that quiz, and once you are aware, then you start questioning those things. Why this is this? And then you will start changing. So few questions, like as a youth I want to tell who all the audience, that if you are not taking consent, number one, then if you are not considering the person equal, if you are not trusting the relationships. So for example, if this having give me the passwords, your social media accounts, whom you are talking, isolating you with your friends and family, taking you to unknown people, maybe so having a relationship is not a problem at all, because as an adult we all have this, legally we can have. But in that relationship, am I mature enough to see that whether I'm not controlling my partner? And it could be both men and women, girl and boys both. So see whether you are controlling the relationship or not. So taking pictures, videos without consent, spreading, storing, filming the intimacy. So all these actually are sign of unhealthy relationship. Isolation, mental torture, financial abuse. So all these are sign, very great sign of unhealthy relationship. So you must see whether it's there or not, and you can check, and you can take all those quizzes also, which is available, and then you can start having the healthy communication with your partner. It's not about always breaking away, and maybe your partner is not understanding. He, because he saw in the movies, he's seeing in the society, as I mentioned, this is the love, the hero should be possessive to heroine, right? We learn through movies. So that's why he always controls her in the name of protection. Why? You both are equal. Why she need protection? Whom she need protection? You enable the safe environment, and she herself will be protected. So enabling environment is most important. Yeah,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
hope I summarized.
This topic is especially relevant for the youth as toxic
Yeah.
relationships are not discussed in our traditional setups, and many people are not even aware of what a toxic relationship is. So, this is a really valuable lesson for all of us.
Thank you,
And
Rishi.
people do lack choices. So, as you told, there are quizzes by My Choices Foundation. So, anybody who has doubt if their relationship is toxic or not, you can check it out. You can take the quiz. Yes, ma'am. Shall we move to the next question, ma'am?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Even this is a very important question. So, what can a witness do in a situation of violence?
Yeah, it's so sometimes we feel why violence keeps on going, and the simple answer is people are not, you know, intervening. So when we say intervening, people get scared sometimes. They feel it's their problem. If I intervene, I may get into some trouble. So there is a lot of, things that goes someone's mind while, intervening in such situations. But remember that you not need to be to do everything. Correct? What very smallest act I can do to change the situation, or to make a difference. So I don't know whether you have you ever come across to see that ad, bell bajao ad, that breakthrough is a organization based in Mumbai. So they are very beautifully, they have made small ads, and I just want to give an example. So you not to be some act like a heroic act to go and rescue somebody and go to police and court and judiciary. So no, very simple thing. A neighbor hears voice from next flat, for example, and he knows that there is something going inside which is not good. He simply just goes and ring the bell. So what you did, you broke the cycle of violence, and the same time you, so this is the woman Irani and other people. So they, what they go to, just they ring the bell, and they ask something, do you have a chai or sugar or something. So you broke the cycle of, violence, and also a very subtle message that I am aware what you are doing, and that's enough. So something, some small stuff like this, or just passing to someone a relevant information. If you are aware that some girl in your college, your friend, she's going through some abuse, family member is going through, your sister, your, colleague, or anyone, just pass the information. You not need to do any counseling. You not need to take her to police and court and all that thing. You just pass the information. Or you can say, hey, I'm there. If you are facing anything, whenever you are comfortable, please let me know. We will do something together. Just that small assurance. Will it take cost you something? Will it take some of your time? Will it take you to some trouble? Lead you into some trouble? So these are very small steps that as individual, as a common person, we can do to stop violence, Number one. Number two, stop spreading sexism jokes. Do not enjoy those kind of joke. Just walk away from those situations. Do not be part of bullying. Do not a part of sexual harassments. Do not even, because when we are silent also sometimes it gives a wrong message to other person that they can continue. So do not part, see from a from a lens of equality, human rights. So we should not have you know that kind of, I mean, what kind of society we are if we enjoy jokes on rape or sexual harassments. So I think this is enable a culture of violence free society if we are not becoming party to all these things directly or indirectly. So I think these are the small steps that I can suggest for for the common people, for the young people, which is not very difficult to take.
Yes, ma'am. As they say, silence is violence, and the first step towards fighting violence would be to raise our voices against it.
Yes.
Yes, and the steps you've mentioned will pose uh, a positive impact on the mindset of people. Like as you said, if a flatmate is, if you hear your uh, nearby flat, like if you hear sounds from your nearby flat and you think it's violence, you can just go knock on the door and ask for something. Just letting them know that you're hearing this, so that they'll be more aware and they'll stop the violence. Yes, ma'am. Coming to the next question, how does violence by youth affect the nation as a whole?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned that gender-based violence is not about women. It's about men too. It's about society. It's about nation. And if you see so we have so we have a social capital. We have a economics. Every aspect, like when we calculate something, right? Cost. So the cost of violence and abuse to the nation is beyond our imagination. When first I got to know the calculations for the sexual harassment. So just a small, just a small portion in the gender-based violence, sexual harassment, and I was shocked to know that it is costing millions to a nation, the sexual harassment, act of sexual harassment. So in terms of employees productivity, job turnover, absenteeism, leaves. So in the US, there is a federal committee which looks all these aspects. They has estimated, and they found it is millions, like 600 some millions. And recently 2008, again there is a study conducted by I think Australian government, and the recent one, and it again estimated that 249.6 million cost sexual harassment. So so this is the very one, I am talking about one portion of violence. Now imagine domestic violence. Now imagine uh, sex trafficking. Now imagine other forms of violence, and how it much costing in terms of economy, and then the social cost, like because violence directly affecting children. If children are witnessing violence in their homes, their surroundings, there is a high chance, especially domestic violence, if boy witnessing violence by father on mother, there is a high chance of him becoming violent in later stage. And the girl child who is witnessing, highly chance of her becoming victim of violence, because she feels that this is the life of a woman and she should be like this. So that it is affecting children, women's health, their well-being, their productivity, uh, is affected by the violence. So it breeds violence. And then again, if you see the youth who are indulging in this kind of violence and abuse and aggression, this toxic masculinity which is leading to alcohol, drug, road rage, accidents, and the number of men who are behind the bars, if you calculate all that, I think this cost, the social cost, the economic cost, the individual cost is so high that we should wage a war against violence to stop it.
Yes, ma'am. Pranav, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am, as you told, the youth do witness violence from their homes and from the society. So that brings me to the next question. So, what is the most important factor in preventing violence by the youth?
So, as Pranav, I already said that youth, because youths are future of our country. We all know, and if at that stage they get a right perspective, right understanding, and they take a stand, then they can prevent many things and they can save the future. And this debate, endless debates like who is less, who is more, who is power. So why we need power and control to someone to dominate somebody? Otherwise, equality and love is enough to nurture the society, the everything. Because nature has, because many of them, the biggest myth is that nature has created women like this and nature has created men like this. Until unless we are not removing this understanding, we keep doing perpetuating this. Nature has created men and women equal in their rights, they are equal, and there are very few difference between men and women, and that has a meaning because their reproductive organs are different. That's all. Because if men are so powerful, then they should have four hands or maybe four legs, right? If they are the only who can, protect and things like that. But nature has created them equal, and if this understanding goes from a very beginning, then there will be no discrimination and violence. Because when we respect somebody, when we, as I said, when we feel somebody is equal, then we never do that. So, for example, even we always give this example of alcoholism. So many a times people think that alcoholism is the reason for violence, right? Especially domestic violence. But why this alcoholic person never beat or hit or abuse to his any police person or his boss? Why he always comes to home and beat wife and children? Because it's a power. Because he feels he has a privilege, he has a power, and she is under her. So that's why he used that. Even in that state of alcoholism, also he's very much aware whom he can hit. So the if our youth get this basic understanding of power and control, and they replaces this power and control with equality and love. And there is a beautiful model developed by Duluth model, it's called. And they have given this whole power and control wheel and how it perpetuated through sexual violence, physical violence, emotional violence, and using children. And on opposite side, he has given the solution of equality wheel. So in all the aspects, how you respect, how you keep the equality as a focal point, and you can change the relationships. It's a beautiful model, we should all follow that. And the youth can lead by examples. And there are many more things that they need to do. They have to build the families, they have to build the nation. And if they are indulged in violence and abuse, then they will not be able to contribute. In those houses where gender equality is practiced, it's a research, it's a very well established research that those houses who practice equality, and there is more gender, equality and love and affection, they tend to do much more better in all parameters. They are much more equipped to face the challenges of life without getting, without involving in, destructive behaviors. So equality must be practiced within. It start with our families, with us, and it is spreaded across. So youth
Yes.
have a really, very important role to play, so that they can change the future. And they can basically enable an environment which is healthy, which is violence free, and in the center is a human rights and equality.
Yes, ma'am. In order to fight against any kind of violence, we need to eliminate the patriarchal mindset and to bring about a change in the power dynamics that have been created through the centuries.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. That brings me to the next question. Do abusers show any potential signs? If so, what are they?
So, see, if there is a so many a times we again have this myth that abusers have some mental disorders or some issue with their psyche or something like that, right? Like pedophilic, we said, na, they are something wrong with. So it's not like that. Maybe there are some people who are suffering with some mental disorders and that's why they are perpetuating. But there is no obvious, you can say material of abuser. They can be very normal. So my brother is very good to me, okay? But my same brother can be abusive to my sister-in-law. My father can be very good to me as a child, but he can be very abusive to my mother. So what psyche is there? So this, as I said, the understanding about power and control, the patriarchal mindset leads to them. But yes, there are many contributing factor which is which when they mix with, then the situation can be more vulnerable, more violent. And yes, there are signs. For example, I said the people who witness violence and abuse in their childhood, there is a high chance of them becoming abuser. Or if they are from the broken families, or if they are constant poverty, worst situations. So all these factors can lead to such kind of behaviors. If they are addicted to drug or alcohol or other kinds of crimes, violent crimes, then there is a high chance of becoming abusive towards women. uh, uh, but generally, it the violence can be perpetuated by anybody who believes in the patriarchy, who believes in power and control.
Thank
I
you,
hope I
ma'am.
answered.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You
Yes, ma'am.
definitely. Thank you for those wonderful words, ma'am. Now we would like to take up some questions from the live audience.
Sure.
Priyanshu wants to know what are the reasons for toxic relationships.
So as I said that the understanding about relationship, so because as I said, we witness certain kind of behavior expectation from our childhood. Those can be wrong. So for example, if I am believing that women should behave in a certain way, men should behave in a certain way, and if it is not happening as I expected, then it can lead to abuse and violence. And then the other very much impact that we are having nowadays is this all social media. Media plays a vital role, and wrong understanding about relationships, wrong understanding about consent, wrong understanding about the what we call possessiveness, so-called possessiveness. So these can lead to a toxic relationship. When we are healthy, when our self-esteems are healthy, self-esteem also plays a vital role. So if we are healthy, our self-esteem are high, and we believe in equality, then we will never ask somebody share your password, where you went, why you dressed like this, I should be taking you to this, do not talk to him or do not talk to her. And the women's understanding about when he should always be taking me with him wherever I go, he should be doing all my work. Because many times girls also feel that he is caring, he is very caring, he is very loving, then he should be doing all this work for me, right? So wrong understanding again based on gender, okay, because man should be like this. And I always say ki if I feel equal, so if you both are a student, for example, if a boy and girl both are a student, then why the hell always this boy is going to pay my bills, restaurant bills? So if we both believe in equality and we both are not earning, then it should be a 50-50, and that is equality. Equality is not someone above or someone below, but considering we both are equal, we both take onus of our acts, we both perform our responsibilities, and maturely we should leading to this relationship. So all these factors we need to consider while we are in the relationship.
Yes, ma'am. We truly need to understand what exactly equality means, and not only understand, we need to exercise that in our daily life.
Yes.
YS asks, how can we create a safe environment for ourselves and those around us?
I think first thing is awareness, and to create a safe environment, we must educate ourselves. There is a lot of psychoeducation material available online, and it's all about practicing mindfulness. So, as I said, what is safe environment? So, if somebody can freely talk, somebody can without prejudice, without being judged, or without being labeled. So, for example, if I'm suffering, I should be allowed to express myself. Majority of the time, because there is a no safe environment, the people who go through any problem, issues, or violence, abuse, they keep silent because the environment is not safe to talk. So are we enabling those safe environments where we are saying that yes, it can happen to anyone, it's not your fault? The first thing, sorry, I forget to mention that victim blaming is worst. So if we say ki it is not your fault, the moment women say anything about relationship, even boys also, because they cannot cry, they cannot share, they have to be like this. So this stigma, this shaming thing, uh, should removed. That creates the safe environment, and that creates safer environment people around us, that you can talk, you can express. uh, if I am not the person who can help, but we will figure it out. So maybe I do not know anything, but still we both can figure out how to uh, seek help. So that called safe environment. And victim blaming should never be the case in any situations. वो क्या पहने थी, what dress she was wearing, how she looked, where she went, all these questions. And same with the boys also. Why he did, I mean, with boys also there is a lot of prejudice and expectations that leads the boy to shut his mouth, not to share, not to express emotions because he also be judged. So breakup हुआ है, okay, he want to cry, let him cry. Crying is a very natural emotions. When we born, we all cried. Then why suddenly it is different for me and different for girls? So let the emotion should be expressed, and that's all called safe environment.
Yes, ma'am. So, to create a safe environment, we need to let go of stereotypes and promote healthy discussions.
Yes, and victim blaming. There should
Yes,
be no
ma'am.
Yeah.
victim blaming.
Moving on to the next question. How can we create a
I think it's the same question,
yes,
Arushi.
how can social media sites be regulated in the wake of increasing cases of cyberbullying and harassment?
Very relevant question. So actually, again, especially with this pandemic, earlier also, we see a lot of hatred, lot of sexism promoted through social media, and there are regulations, there are IT laws, cyber laws, but we are not aware. Okay, so I'm always saying ki law is one aspect. Okay, so there are laws, But do we have understanding about those laws, or do we know that what platforms are there where I can lodge a complaint? So everything nowadays, everything is online. Even there is from the home ministry, there is a site. If you just simply click the home ministry site, you will see a cyber law. Women can actually file directly from there, and the complaint will be taken immediately. So there are very robust system, as I mentioned. But so so it is a step where the incident already happened, right? But before that, are how responsible I am to use social media? Do I put any responsibility on myself while commenting, while perpetuating anything? It could be a caste, it could be a gender, it could be a religion, it could be anything. So am I responsible enough? So that you need to understand, there are very clear guidelines to follow social media, to operate social media. Am I abiding to those guidelines? It clearly says never be friend of any stranger, do not share. We all are very excited to share everything, what we ate, when we wake up, where we went. So so that I really ask ki, what kind of false happiness we are trying to explore there, and how much. So once I uploaded everything, then I'm crying for my privacy. So it is not going hand in hand, correct? So am I mindful? I'm not saying you should not share, you should not express yourself, but who will decide the limit? So it's me only. So I think these are the safeguards that you can take while entering into social media zone. But even taking after all these precautions, if something happens to you over there, there are mechanisms. As I said, there is a site in Home Ministry. You can log in. There is a cyber related crime. You can immediately lodge their complaint. You can complain in the local police station. Worst case, you don't know anything. Just dial 100 and tell what happened. They will guide you. So it's all about safety precautions, and there is beautiful booklets designed by various organization, ministry. Very small steps how to prevent cyberbullying or cyber harassment and crimes. Just read through it, and while operating, you just need to be mindful. That's all.
Yes, ma'am. We see many children in social media these days. They post everything on their stories and statuses. And then, like you said, they ask about or they question their privacy, and they often get cyberbullied. And due to the illiteracy, I mean, they are not literate. I mean, they do not know the laws and acts of IT. So they are often misguided. And yes, as you said, we should be careful while using social media, and we should follow proper guidelines.
Yes, once you follow the guideline and something happens, then you have laws also, what I mean to say. But we should be responsible enough that how much we want to share and what it can lead to later. So it's not, so prevention is always better than cure.
Thank you for those
Yes.
wonderful words, ma'am. We have a last question in the audience. What is one law that you want to see implemented that's not yet introduced in our judicial system for violence against women?
I think the marital rape law, because under Domestic Violence Act 2005, consent within the marriage is important, but that is not a criminal law, because Domestic Violence Act is not a criminal law, it is a civil law which provide reliefs. And later, if you violate those orders given by magistrate, it turns into criminal. But I think this is one law that must implemented in our country, declaring marital rape as a crime. Because there is a lot of debate and discussions, and people are arguing that it's a when you married, you consented. So But I think the consent, the importance of consent is that it should be taken every time, and the the body belongs to that person, and it should be respected, not violated, because in our experience we see very heinous sexual crimes against married women perpetuated by their husbands, and which is legal in terms of, because there is a no law which is punishing that. A lot of sexual violent sexual crimes we are seeing towards women by husbands. So I think that one thing that we must introduce in law, we must make spread awareness about it, to prevent it, because it's affecting so much women.
Yes, ma'am. By this, we'll be wrapping up the event. And thank you,
Yeah.
ma'am, for those wonderful words. To sum it up, any form of violence or abuse has far reaching psychological and physiological consequences. Not only does it affect the victim adversely, but it threatens to destroy the very fabric of our society. Violence brings out the worst in humanity and has no place in a civilized world. Compassion, mutual respect, and acceptance for each other are our only defense against brutality. Let us join the fight against violence, as it is the only fight worth partaking in.
Before we bid adieu, it gives me great pride and honor to propose the vote of thanks. I would like to thank My Choices Foundation and Dr. Farzana Khan for joining us today, taking time out of a busy schedule. The session was truly enlightening for us, and I am sure that we all took really valuable lessons from it. I would like to thank our faculty coordinators for their constant guidance and support. Lastly, I would like to express my gratitude to our wonderful audience who joined us in today's session. Stay safe and have a very good evening.